like memes aside, I don't want us to get too ahead of it. They are a strong team. They beat Fnatic, and we should respect them. But at the same time, I would have definitely like been sweating a lot more if we got, say, Dam 1.
Hi everybody, this is Tom reporting from Worlds 2020. With me here is the Scout Analyst of G2 Esports. It's Luci, also known as AngelArcher, or by some as AngelArcher. How are you doing, Luci?
I'm not doing too bad, thank you. How are you doing yourself?
I'm doing good, thank you very much. We're here obviously to talk about G2's performance at Worlds so far in the group stage, and also maybe look a bit ahead at the at the knockout stage that they're going to be playing at. So first of all, I want to know from you, because you're a Scout Analyst and you look at the opponents that we're going to play in the group stage. How is it for you to prepare for the group stage? Was it a lot of work?
Honestly, I think because we knew relatively early that we would play Suning and Machi, I was able to get the scout reports done with quite quickly. It wasn't hard. It wasn't anything new. The only thing that I wasn't too happy with, I guess, was that there was just a big difference in time between the last time that they played and the first time that they were playing group stages. It'll be about a difference of a month. Then a lot of things can change in the space of a month. So obviously I did my work as usual, but there was something in the back of my head that I wasn't actually sure how accurate it would be. Just because meta changes, players develop, and scrims happen internationally now, so I wasn't sure exactly what to expect from these two teams when we first faced them in the groups. Liquid was easier in that regard, just because obviously we saw them play in play-ins. We saw them play about 4 or 5 games or so we had a good idea of what they would play and how they would play, like, for sure. But yeah, it was just difficult on Liquid in terms of timing, because obviously it was a very short period of time between when we drew Liquid and when we would actually play our first game.
Right, so you weren't actually sure whether you should be scouting them in that sense.
Yeah, I know that some people think that you should scout all the teams and one of them will bound to like hit, but obviously for me that's not really an option, and I don't have that sort of time to spend. So for me, it's always a case of I wait until we see who we have to play, and then I do the scout report as quickly as I can.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess why would you look at INTZ from the get-go? I suppose that's but having that material ready is a huge benefit. Do you ever, when you make the scout reports, or when you look at when you already know that you're playing teams like Machi and Suning, do you ever look at things like scrim leagues that surface?
I personally don't, but I can imagine like our players, for example, or like just our other coaching staff just taking a note of like what they played. But at the same time, one scrim game doesn't necessarily say much about the team.
Right.
Obviously it may have like revealed a secret pick or something, but at the same time we don't know if that pick is actually a secret pick of theirs, or if it's just something that they were trying for that one game that happened to get leaked on accident. So I don't think one game that accidentally gets leaked should be a whole representative of that team in scrims and what they're actually capable of doing. But it's free information, I guess, so can't really complain about it.
Right. Now, I suppose free information always good, but I'm wondering, do you have some network maybe with other teams who do scrim? Like, for example, Rogue, maybe if they scrimmed against Suning, do you ever ask them, like, hey, is that something that you do?
No, I mean, no, I think that's something that's like obviously really seriously frowned upon.
Right.
I obviously don't do something like that. I work by myself, and like I can't even watch scrims in China right now, so I have no idea what goes on in scrims anyway. But no, stuff like that is like certainly frowned upon, and I would expect every other team to be respectful of that.
Right.
And respect each other's like privacy and what they're playing and stuff like that, because at the end of the day it is a competition, and it is like competitive integrity, right?
Yeah. I don't mean to implicate that I heard anything like that. I'm just wondering, because it's so high stakes, and some teams might try to seek every advantage they can get, but I'm glad to hear that you value that competitive integrity.
Of course.
Now in the group stage, during the group stage, what do you do then? Because all the teams are playing against each other. Everybody can see what they are playing. Do you just mostly focus on matches like Machi versus Suning and try to digest that information for Duffman from home and send it to them? What happens in those matches? Or do you also take into account what G2 is playing themselves?
Generally, in between games of groups, I don't do any sort of hardcore like analyzing or scouting than I would do before groups. Generally because, according to Duffman, my reports were pretty accurate. Therefore, I didn't need to go and reevaluate the team when they first started playing. Sort of going through the games is something that I did myself, but I think it's something that Duffman and Grabs in China and the players themselves would have looked at firsthand. Therefore, I wouldn't need to sort of double up on the work that they did unless it's something like really specific or obscure that I noticed. But considering pretty much every single team in groups played the way we anticipated, I think it was very sort of easy for me to take a step back, sort of, I gave you the information that I know, now you need to carry it.
Right.
But obviously if they did play differently to how I predicted, then I would go into crazy mode and see all the games again.
Yeah, try to find some new information that they can use in the rematch in the second week.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Now, talking about G2's performance overall in the group stage, we have to touch on this. Personally, I expected G2 to need some time to warm up, as they usually do when it comes to tournaments like this. I saw on Twitter you gave them a lovingly nickname of Inting Apes. How are you feeling about G2's performance so far at Worlds?
All I'm going to say is that my pick'ems for Group A were 100% correct.
Same, yeah.
But
I'm not going to talk about the other groups, but yeah, Group A. Yeah.
No, honestly, I think we played sort of as expected. I think the games versus Machi were pretty good, pretty clean from my memory. Suning, we had that clown fiesta of a first game with the base race that sort of turned down. And then again with Suning, we lost the second game and then we had the tiebreaker. I kind of expected us to struggle against them in the beginning, like just during group stages, just because this is the first LPL team that we have come across from ever since we came to Worlds, right? And basically all year, because MSI was cancelled. So I expected there to be some growing pains, I guess, in adapting to the Worlds meta and the World scrims and just being on stage again. I expected this, and I expected this result. I think we're playing relatively well right now, especially Mickey. I think Mickey has really stepped up this World, and I think he's doing an amazing job.
Yeah, I think many people are very happy with Mickey's performance, especially.
Yeah, Mickey is doing very well, and I know a lot of people blame Jankos for his performance as well, especially in the first week. Some of it deserved, some of it not deserved, but I kind of expected them to do this way. Liquid first game, yeah, it's clowning. Just clowning. Need to help NA out, and then second game was better. No, but yeah, I did expect us to play like this, and in like my gut feeling was I knew we were going to lose one game at least to Liquid, like through some way. So I wasn't that surprised with it, honestly.
Wow. Yeah, I did not expect that to happen. I expected Suning to be a tougher opponent overall, also in week 1. But I suppose in the first week they were a pretty tough opponent, and that match is already a historic match between any opponents, any teams that played in the group stage. But you touched on Jankos' performance, and I think it's true. Many people have been critical, and it does seem like, especially in this meta, G2 is struggling a bit with the early game, where they fall behind and then they have to claw themselves back into it. How do you, when you analyze these teams and when you present this information to your team, how do you try to influence this and help your team?
I think, obviously, I try to like scout what enemy team does in the early game and sort of giving them an idea. And Jankos, I guess, has a clear plan. I think with level ones being so important right now, as we have seen in Worlds, a lot of level ones occur, and then that can drastically sort of shift the game in either team's favor, you know. Um, that is not really something that I don't know about scrims. That's not something that we like came across in Europe a lot. Most things are like very slow paced, level one, no invades and such. So I think it's something that's very new to them and something that they have had to get used to again, um, with time and with practice. Um, I don't really look specifically at level ones. That's more so Duffman.
Okay.
Um, but in terms of Jankos's performance, I think that some of it is, you know, being on stage again and just not using his brain sometimes. But other times it is just not just his fault. Like isolated, it is like a team problem, for example. And I know that it is easy for people to just blame the jungler rather than looking holistically at the whole team.
Yeah.
But
I've heard Grab say, for example, in interviews, that what people do miss is that Jankos is always the first one to give up his advantage to assist his teammates and get them into a lane advantage. And that is definitely a fair point to make, right? I don't want to go like too specifically in what's going wrong for him, because I think that even though you're probably communicating with the team, like what's specifically going wrong is maybe easier for him to say in terms of what his mindset is, as you already alluded to a bit. Now, I do want to look forward at the knockout stage as well, because, the good side is that G2 will not face an LPL team until the finals, if they make it this far.
that is correct.
But let's talk about who they will face. It's GenG, and they're in the South Korean bracket, kind of, with DRX and Damwon in the other knockouts, in the other top 8 match, the other quarterfinal. Now, GenG had a bit of an easier group than other teams in terms of their opponents, many would say. How have you found their performance so far? Do they look impressive to you? Do you think it will be easy for G2 to overcome them? How do you view them?
I feel like they're a strong team, otherwise they wouldn't have made it this far, obviously. At the same time, when I was looking at their VODs yesterday, I wasn't necessarily blown away, so to say. I'm not saying that they're a bad team and we'll like roll them over. I'm just saying that they're not the best team out there. So we got a bit lucky, I would say. I think that's fair to say. But I don't want us to underestimate them. I know that there's the whole meme about, us destroying LCK last year.
Right.
However, we haven't played an LCK team this year. How do we know that we're going to beat them? How do we know that they're just going to like smash us now? So I don't want us to get, like, memes aside, I don't want us to get too ahead of it. They are a strong team. They beat Fnatic. And we should respect them. But at the same time, I would have definitely like been sweating a lot more if we got, say, Damwon.
Yeah.
First off.
Yeah, I guess Damwon looked even more impressive in the group stage, and it was a relief to many, at least, that JDG beat them once, so people could see, okay, well, they can be defeated after all. So now, when you view a tournament, you're obviously also busy with university, but when you look at all these matches, do you think of them, or do you make notes about these teams? Okay, if we face these teams in the quarterfinals, this will be important to look at, or do you, as a viewer, just relax more? And because you told me, we knew that we were gonna face maybe Liquid after the play-ins had concluded, so it was difficult to scout them. But how is that in the group stage? Was it any different?
I think in the group stage, Group B and Group D were, it's fairly certain which teams would get first seed. Group C, until the very last day, I think was anyone could play for that first seed apart from TSM. So that kind of made things difficult for me in the sense that, again, I couldn't scout. I
Mm-hmm.
scouted top esports during the summer before, so I have more so of like an idea of how they play than
Right.
the other players.
Mm-hmm.
But when watching Worlds, it is again more so as a viewer, especially as in some of those days I'm actually at university.
Right.
So I just have it on the side next to me while I'm working, low key. But yeah, it's certainly something that I could have done had I been given more time. And if I am watching, and there's something like clearly outstanding, then I will make a mental note of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not the type of person to watch live and take notes unless it's very urgent and like say like GenG plays yesterday and we face them tomorrow,
Right.
then I would.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a case where I can take an evening or a day to myself to properly look at the games, then I'd rather do that.
Yeah, no, I get that. Now talking a bit about the teams overall that are in the top 8. Do you think, like many people would say said when the top 8 was finalized, this is probably the clearest top 8 we've ever had, like heading into the top 8 itself, where it's like, okay, these 8 teams are truly above the teams that they have left behind in the group stage. Is that something that you agree with?
No, I do agree. I think the only other team that you could potentially throw in there is maybe LGD.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Group C was kind of everyone's to play for. The other groups were sort of a very clear top 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the only other team I could potentially throw in there is LGD, but I agree basically with the top 8 that did make it through this year, and
Yeah.
it is a stacked top 8 for sure.
Yeah, definitely is. You obviously do not want to give away too much from GenG, from the scouting you've done and what you expect them to bring versus you guys. But I'm wondering, if you look at the opposite side of the bracket, it's top esports versus Fnatic, and you have Suning versus LGD. What are your expectations there for those teams? How are you feeling about these matchups? Does Fnatic stand a chance of working their way through, or is it going to be an LPL fiesta?
When I originally looked at top in the summer, I saw a lot of sort of 2019 G2 in them in the way that they play.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a G2 versus Fnatic in disguise, and they did beat us 3-2 at one point, but then we also did beat them 3-0. So it
Mm-hmm.
could potentially go either way. I think Fnatic definitely have stepped up their play ever since Worlds, so I imagine it to be a close game, or at least a 3-1 or a 3-2. But after that, who can they play? They can play JD
Or Suning.
or Suning.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if they beat top, then they should be able to like easily beat JD or Suning.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either all of nothing, pretty
Right.
much.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you've been overall, it sounds like you've been impressed by Fnatic's performance, especially considering maybe how they performed during the regular summer split.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously they struggled a bit during summer,
Mm-hmm.
but then they did find their footing ever since the evolution. And I think, coming to Worlds does improve players just because they're playing more players, different play styles, different like champions, different meta.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that overall a lot of people do improve for Worlds. It's just a matter of which team improves more. And, I have been impressed with Fnatic, especially, everyone's talking about Selfmade, how good a Selfmade is.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually quite proud of Nemesis as well, especially since I knew how much he struggled in the summer split. It's really nice, obviously, as an EU fan and wanting EU to do well, that he is sort of holding his own
Mm-hmm.
and not being, I guess, a weakness in Fnatic as he was in the summer split. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, Selfmade has been improved, like really impressing. Bwipo has done really well as well. But again, Bwipo wasn't exactly against the most challenging top laners, I would say. Obviously, Rascal from GenG was pretty good. But outside of that, it would be interesting to see him against 369 particularly.
Yeah. One of the top laners that has stood out definitely in the tournament so far, 369. And then if he faces JDG or Oh, Stunning, it would be
JDG's
Bin and
Zoom.
Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah. So he
Well,
definitely has a lot of top laners
he
to
has
go
his
through.
work cut out for him, definitely,
Yeah, for
if he
sure.
wants to make it. Yeah. DRX versus Damwon is the other quarterfinal. Damwon has looked almost infallible so far. DRX maybe less so, but they still played an incredibly tense game against top esports in the final on the final day of Group D, where it was maybe the closest 0-0 game at 20 minutes that anybody has ever watched. How are you feeling about that side of the bracket with Damwon and DRX?
Honestly, if this was before Group B and D, so like after week 1, I would say top is better than Damwon. After seeing Damwon play, after finishing Group D, I think that Damwon are for sure the favorites, and they are a super strong team. DRX again a solid team, but considering how dominant Damwon have been, I expect them to do very well and win against DRX.
Yeah. What is it that makes Damwon so strong from your perspective? Because, well, many people are saying they are a perfect team, in terms of drafting, in terms of execution and stuff like that. But from you, with a more analytical mind, what stands out to you from them?
I think, again, I haven't looked at their games precisely, but just from a viewer standpoint, I do think they are, I guess, an all-star team. They have a potential to carry in every single role, right? You have Nuguri, Canyon, Showmaker, Ghost, Beryl. Like, all of these players are capable of stepping up and carrying when it matters. And they obviously are from LCK, so they have really clean macro, they have really good drafts, and they know how to play for each other pretty much. I haven't yet spotted a weakness in them, but that's because I haven't sat down to like properly look at their games. But yeah, overall, I guess you can call them a well-oiled machine, and there would definitely be a very tough opponent if we do play them.
I was gonna ask this next. Would they be the toughest opponent for G2 to face in the tournament, you think?
I think so. Like I said, I think before top was my favorite to win, but after seeing Damwon finishing Group D, I think Damwon are for sure favorites. Obviously, I'm not saying that if we beat Damwon, that's it, the tournament's over, we won. But Damwon is for sure the strongest contender right now for Worlds.
All right. Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot a bit now to round up the interview.
No.
The odds of G2 winning it all, give them to me. I haven't looked in my pick'em, like nobody. They automatically look in, so this is gonna be what everybody's gonna base their predictions off. Obviously, what you're gonna say now.
I'd say 20%, maybe 25, maybe 25. Because I think the only other team is like.
Considering that there are 8 teams, statistically it would be 12.5%.
Yeah. No, but I think we can beat GenG, so that puts us up a bit more. We'll at least make semis.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining me, Luci. Always very insightful to hear from you. And, well, good luck as well with your analytical work going forward in the tournament. I hope, obviously, for your sake and a bit of EU pride that you have to do analytical work until the finals. So good luck with it.
Thank you so much.